3, 2.
Hey, this is Gary Hess along with Gary Criswell. We're at Meadowbrook High School where tonight the season opener of the 20th season of Sports Radio 910 High School Football wrapped up with Highland Springs beating Meadowbrook 48-28. The field behind us is quiet now, but what a wild game tonight. DJ Johnson, Gerard Johnson, the two quarterbacks put on a show, but it was all Springers in the fourth quarter.
Absolutely. They did a long 8-minute drive, 15 plays, came up with no score, but contained the Meadowbrook offense, got the ball back, put it across, got it to be a two-score game, and basically they kind of just wore down Meadowbrook down the stretch.
Gary, the opening week of high school football is always very interesting because you don't have preseason games. You have scrimmages. You can't really tell much. You don't really know. We knew about the quarterbacks, but Highland Springs is better than advertised.
They're much better than advertised. They're very, very deep in the skill positions at wide receiver and running back in particular. And again, I was very, very impressed that defensively they just said, our folks are good enough to defend you. And they kept their cool. They weathered a really, really strong drive the first time. They gave up a quick 7 points to Meadowbrook in a very efficient drive, and they just kind of got their legs under them. And that was probably the only effect of them playing their first game versus Meadowbrook, who had already had a game under their belt. After that, they were able to go toe-to-toe. They kept it close at halftime, and then just opened it up in the third quarter.
Now, Meadowbrook has some issues. They've given up 89 yards in 89 points in 2 games. They're 1-1. But the Monarchs are still going to be a factor in the Central District. This is still a good football team.
Absolutely a good football team, and one of the things that's going to probably benefit from is defensively they'll be able to get themselves in better position because they have some athletes to make some plays. And so if they start getting some turnovers and they can start stopping teams on more of a regular basis, and maybe even get a pick six or scoop six at some point, and kind of get that defensive personality going, then they don't have to put so much pressure on the offense. So it's kind of a balancing act at this point. But Coach Taylor and his staff doesn't really need to panic too much. They've got obviously some things they've got to correct. They got some time to do it, but the tough Central District, they're probably going to have to pull their house in order in the next couple of weeks.
Next week we have a Varina team that beat Dinwiddie tonight 14-7, taking on a Thomas Dale team that lost to LC Bird 14-7 down in Chester.
Yeah, and we're just going to, it's going to be one of those situations where both teams have been there before, and that's one of the reasons they schedule themselves from year to year. They try and test each other. We know that Kevin Tucker and his crew, has plenty of weapons on both sides of the football, and we know Varina is very, very talented. That's what Stu Brown does, and it's a matter of time before they explode on somebody. Thomas Dale's got to make sure it doesn't happen next week.
We'll have it for you next Friday night. High school football completely covered on Sports Radio 910 and sportsradio910.com.